Hello class and welcome back to MUS 222, the history and sociology of rock music. So today we are in module 12 and we're going to be looking at the genres of funk, disco, and rap. And I know this is another one that you may be scratching your head. How do these three actually relate to each other? Well, believe it or not, they are very well related. In fact, funk and disco are going to be the foundations of your hip hop and rap music. So stick with me because you will be shocked to see how this all comes together. Soul music started evolving around 1970 into a more primal form of R&B called funk music. Funk is a groove and has a simple 1 or 2 bar repeating phrase that are loosely structured with extended jams, very long improvisations, and lyrics sung like the stream of consciousness. Funk singers employ all kinds of vocal tricks. They'll shriek and scream, they'll have guttural noises and grunts, and sometimes they're locked in rhythmically to the band, or sometimes they're just floating about out in rhythm. Group vocal chants are also very common. Funk was the rawest, earthiest, and most Africanized form of black pop music to date. And the pioneer and godfather of funk music is going to be your James Brown. His work in the mid-1960s solidified this style, especially with Papa's Got a Brand New Bag. So while you finish up your notes, click on the link for Papa's Got a Brand New Bag and enjoy some James Brown. George Clinton is one of the most eccentric and colorful musicians of all time, leading a group of musicians known at various times as Parliament, Funkadelic, the P-Funk All-Stars, and the Mothership Connection. Clinton produced some of the most adventurous recordings of the 1960s and 70s. After working as a staff writer at Motown for Berry Gordy, Clinton started experimenting and built up a cult following through innovative concept album and dazzling concert experiences. Clinton would dress up in elaborate costumes, jump out of coffins while band members wore diapers, smoked marijuana, and they would simulate sex acts. Musically, Clinton mixed influences from psychedelic, R&B, and jazz. Lyrically, he created cosmic and imagery worlds with characters. He is James Brown on acid or the Black Frank Zappa. Clinton had very little crossover appeal. And the example we have for you today is Flashlight. So please pause here and take a listen. Like Clinton, Sylvester Stewart, also known as Sly Stone, created a hybrid of soul, R&B, psychedelic rock, and jazz with his band, The Family Stone, but with much greater pop sensibility. The group had a very unusual multi-gender, multi-ethnic makeup and was well received. Bass player Larry Graham developed the slap technique of playing that has become a staple of all subsequent funk and jazz rock fusion. Their music contained a great sing-along hooks as well as harsh social commentary like equal rights. So take a second, pause right here, and listen to our example and get to know Sly and the Family Stone. So we have lots of other important funk bands, but some of the top ones include Earth, Wind, and Fire. And Earth, Wind, and Fire would use Latin rhythms and jazzy horn lines. And we have an example here for you, September. If you've ever seen the movie Drumline, it is in that movie. We also have Kool and the Gang with the example Jungle Boogie. You have Ohio Players with Love Roller Coaster. And then we also have Curtis Mayfield with Freddie's Dead. So we have several examples for you. I would love for you to hit the pause button and take a few minutes to listen to each one. When disco hit the pop music world in the mid-1970s, it did it with such sudden, overpowering force that much of the music establishment was really just caught off guard. Disco's most important feature was its rhythm and the relentless pounding emphasis on every beat from funk. Its other musical influences were very diverse. It had a lush string and horn orchestrations from Motown, and then you had percussion from Latin music, vocal chants and honking saxophones from R&B, and then new technology like synthesizers and drum machines. Like swing, disco was the first and foremost music to dance to at the time. Disco's origins were in the European and East Coast dance clubs known as discotheques that first became popular during the early 1960s. These clubs generally employed DJs to play records rather than hire live bands out of economic necessity. And by the early 70s, discos went underground. They catered to the Black, Hispanic, and gay subcultures. Around 1973, the popularity started to rebound due to increasing skills of DJs who would seamlessly merge one song to the next by using two turntables and keeping the beat constant. Now, this enabled dancers who were generally on uppers to stay on the dance floor for a very extended period of time. It became fashionable to dress up, enabling dancers to fantasize that they were featured performers. Disco turned the tables on established rock culture. The DJs, producers, and dancers were the stars instead of the singers and the instrumentalists. Take a second while you finish your notes here and hit "Love to Love You Baby" as our example. So the queen of disco, otherwise known as Donna Summer, emerged in the late 1975 with "Love to Love You Baby," which hopefully you just listened to, with synthesized sounds and drum machine beats. Summer repeated the title over and over again. Another example of hers is going to be "Hot Stuff," so take a second, pause right here, and listen to a little bit of that one. An English group called the Bee Gees introduced their disco sound with "You Should Be Dancing." A year later, they provided the soundtrack to the Hollywood smash hit Saturday Night Fever starring John Travolta, which actually helped bring disco into the mainstream. All right, guys, so take a second and pause. Listen to "You Should Be Dancing," which if you are a fan of the Minions and Despicable Me, you probably have heard this song. And then also "Staying Alive" from the movie soundtrack, Saturday Night Fever. Other very popular disco musicians and groups are going to include Barry White, Gloria Gaynor, you have Chick, Casey and the Sunshine Band, and of course, who doesn't know, the Village People. All right, so as you write these down, listen to a little Casey and the Sunshine Band, "Get Down Tonight." Hip-hop emerged in the South Bronx neighborhoods of New York City in the late 1970s. In fact, we are going to be watching a short video clip about how it came about in the South Bronx, and it's actually quite fascinating how hip-hop was discovered and created. Its most obvious musical connection to previous rock styles are going to be funk, especially James Brown, and disco music. In the years leading up to the emergence of hip-hop, Black youth culture was nearly invisible to the rest of the country. In mid to late 1970s, this form of self-expression emerged in the largely Black and Hispanic communities of the South Bronx. Now, informal neighborhood groups called crews or posses began to form as a means of providing identity. At parties and other social gatherings, it became fashionable for crews to display graffiti art, break dance moves, and play records as a way to gain notoriety and celebrity. So while you finish your notes here, take a listen to Kool Herc's "Let Me Clear My Throat." In the earliest stages of development, DJs such as Bronx native Africa Bambaataa, Kool Herc, and Grandmaster Flash would spin records in innovative ways to create excitement. Now, Africa Bambaataa organized Zulu Nation to promote values in the community and group dances of hip-hop. Now, the cool thing about the Zulu Nation, and they'll talk about this a little bit in the documentary that we're going to watch, but Bambaataa was actually a gang leader, and he changed the community by turning it into a positive thing with Zulu Nation. And of course, hip hop was the center of this. So it's very interesting to see how somebody that went from a terrible background with crime and was a leader in that type of thing, actually made it a very positive part of their community. And so although a lot of times rap and hip hop get a bad rap, no pun intended there, it actually, at the birth of hip hop and the beginning of it, was a very, very positive thing for this culture. So we'll look a little bit more into this as we go on. Now, Kool Herc was instrumental in developing the art of mixing smooth transitions between two turntables to feature the break. And the break is the most danceable instrumental section of the record. And he also began to recite rhymes to accompany his mixing, and he is known as the father of hip hop. Now, the next DJ we have is Grandmaster Flash, and he is given credit for perfecting the practice of scratching or backspinning to play a record back and forth quickly to create a scratching sound. Eventually, MCs were added to take over most of the rhyming and vocal interactions and began to attract the most attention from audience, and these were your early rappers. And so as you can see there, I have a documentary that I want you to start about 1 minute and 40 seconds and go into about 17:12 there. Take a minute and watch this. It really is fascinating to see how exactly hip-hop was born, and it was born out of a culture that was both poor and not in a good situation, and how it really did change the community and everything. So it ended up being a very, very positive thing. Even though some of you may have an outlook on it that is not positive, I think you can at least agree with me that the background of it, the birth of it, was a really good thing. In September of 1979, the outside world got its first glimpse of a new style when Rapper's Delight by the Sugar Hill Gang hit the charts at number 36. Street MCs had been adding lyrics and chants to funk and disco records called sampling. The Sugar Hill Gang recorded a rap over a rhythm track sampled from Chick's early summer hit Good Times, and it became a huge hit. So what I want you to do is take a second, pause right here. I want you to listen to a little bit of Good Times by Chick, and that's a disco song, and then Rapper's Delight by Sugar Hill Gang, and you're going to hear that they sound a lot alike as far as the music goes, but then when the actual singing or the rapping occurs, it is quite different. So it's kind of neat to see how they go together. As you're listening, do you see the funk and disco influences on hip-hop music? Within the next few years, small independent labels started to sign hip-hop stars, including the first rapper to be signed named Curtis Blow. This first generation of rappers performing became known as old school rap because of the themes of fun and partying. However, one record from this era signaled a significant change in direction. The Message by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five described the harsh realities of ghetto life and laid the foundation for rap's future development. Throughout the early 1980s, rap expanded further into the pop charts and extended outside of the Bronx. The first important rap label, Def Jam Records, released albums by Run DMC and the Beastie Boys, which signaled a new level of commercial appeal. Run DMC consisted of 3 middle-class and college-educated rappers. It was propelled by an ingenious piece of marketing, a rap remake of Aerosmith's hit Walk This Way. Run DMC had a harder edge than the earlier groups and featured an innovative vocal technique of finishing each other's lines instead of trading verses. Take a second and listen to a little bit of Walk This Way with the Run DMC version. The Beastie Boys were the first important white rap group, and probably one of their best known songs is You've Got to Fight for Your Right to Party. Take a second, pause right here, and listen to a little bit of it. Public Enemy is often called the Black Panthers of rap, singing about police brutality, urban drug problems, and ghetto life. 911 is a Joke describes the ineffective public assistance in ghetto neighborhoods. Take a second, pause right here, and listen to a little bit of 911 is a Joke. Other East Coast rappers emerged, including LL Cool J, the first all-female group Salt-N-Pepa, Queen Latifah, and 2 Live Crew. Finally, listen to a little Salt-N-Pepa with Shoop. West Coast rappers, particularly those from the ghettos of Los Angeles, were turning up the threatening and menacing tone of gangster rap to a boiling point. West Coast gangster rap emerged in the 1990s and is among the most controversial and despised music ever produced. The main point of contention was the use of first-person accounting of vivid descriptions of violence, rage, and sexual degradation. One of the first instances came from rapper Ice-T, who assumed the persona of a hardened LA criminal in the 1986 record 6 in the Morning. This, as well as other works, were criticized for glorifying violence. In 1992, Cop Killer was dropped from his album for its lyrics denouncing police departments all over the country, as well as President George H. Bush, causing death threats to the record label. Now, the thing I find most ironic about Ice-T getting so much controversy from his lyrics is that he now plays a cop on TV. So he is in the Law and Order Special Victims Unit TV show, and he plays a cop. So it's just very interesting how that all worked itself out, and it just goes to show you that most of the time when music is created, it's created, it may be controversial, but it's created controversial to make money, because controversial music will make money. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the artists mean what they're saying. So take that all into consideration when you're listening to any type of music. A Los Angeles group, NWA, led by Ice Cube and Dr. Dre, escalated controversy further with the album Straight Outta Compton, depicting gang violence, drive-by shootings, and drug dealings like Gangsta Gangster. Take a second and listen to a little bit of the radio-edited version of Straight Outta Compton. Now, once you've finished listening to this, do you think gangster rap affected society? Did it help or did it hurt the urban ghettos? Take a minute to think about that, and we'll talk about it in class. One of the most successful white artists is going to be Eminem, who was produced by Dr. Dre. Although known for his foul language and stirring up conflict in his lyrics, he received a Grammy in 2001 for the album The Real Slim Shady. And the example we have, When I'm Gone, is going to actually show you the softer side of Eminem. Other great gangster rap artists include Snoop Doggy Dogg, Tupac Shakur, the Notorious B.I.G., and Lil Wayne.